Reason will try to tell you that you can't have this thing. Reason's going to try to tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not qualified enough, that you're not pretty enough, and on and on and on and on. We can choose in each moment, in every moment, whether or not to accept that premise. Because again, just because it is based on something we've experienced in the past does not mean that it is inherently going to happen in the future or that it's inherently true. A quote that Neville would often repeat is that we need to go beyond reasoning to the end, to the wish fulfilled. He would stress constantly the importance of leaving the facts alone. And I really want to dive into this more a bit in today's video because this is probably the biggest stumbling block. Actually, without question, this is the biggest stumbling block that we face when we find out about these teachings and we go to apply them. What we quickly find is that we are overcome by our reasoning, by the facts of this world. And if those facts and our logic is in opposition of what we desire, then we run headlong into resistance and we find it to be incredibly difficult to actually go to the end, to actually fully and completely surrender to the wish fulfilled. So today I want to talk about reason, I want to talk about logic, and I want to talk about some of the fallacies and why we need to truly learn to let the facts go, why we need to surrender reason if we desire to see a change within ourselves and within the external reality. By the way, hi, I'm Missy Renee. And on this channel, we talk all things manifestation and the law of assumption. So if those are topics that you want to learn more about, then definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. And if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're interested in any of my resources, such as my coaching programs, my workshops, and masterclasses, I'll have links to all of that down in the description box below. So don't forget to check that out. Over the years that I have been talking about the law, speaking about the law, implementing it in my own life and coaching others, is that time and time again, the thing that keeps us from fully submitting to what we desire, the one thing that keeps us from genuinely entering that state of the wish fulfilled, is our own logic and reason. According to the dictionary, reason is the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. Logic and reason help us in explaining why things are the way that they are. It's a way that we try to make sense of this world and what's going on in it. It explains why something is the way that it is, why someone does the things that they do or says the things that they do, why people behave in a certain way. All of this is stemming from reason and logic, or what we have experienced and what we can extrapolate from the things that we've experienced. If you are somebody like how I used to be, a very analytical person, then trying to apply these teachings are going to feel very difficult because it leaves out a lot of variables that we are constantly looking for, or I should say, the ego is always trying to make sense of, which is why reason is truly the cornerstone of our challenges and difficulties when it comes to the law and its application. But I want to explain a little bit about why this is, and I also want to explain some important things we want to understand about our reasoning and how, under scrutiny, our logic does not hold up. In fact, a lot of the things that we can perceive as logical are actually very illogical and irrational. My aims and hopes is that this can help you to dispel your own logic against whatever it is that you desire and alleviate some of that resistance you might be experiencing so you can genuinely and truly begin to go all in on your imaginal acts and what you desire. So to understand logic and our ways of reasoning, we have to boil it down to two camps. There are two types of reasoning that we all do, and all of our systems of logic boil down to one of these two types of reasoning. This is going to be a bit of extra information, but do stick around because there is importance to understanding this. So the two types of reasoning that we have are deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. With deductive reasoning, we start with a general theory and through hypothesis and observation narrow it down to reach a specific conclusion. This is often called a top-down approach because we start with a general theory and narrow it down to a specific conclusion. Inductive reasoning, on the other hand, takes specific examples and uses it to form a general theory or conclusion. So this is more of a bottom-up approach. So with deductive reasoning, you're starting with something more broad stroke and general and narrowing it down to a specific conclusion. And in inductive reasoning, you are taking specific examples and observations, noting the patterns, and using that to create a more general theory. And probably the best way to understand these two reasonings is to use examples. In deductive reasoning, we could take the general observation that all mammals have backbones and all humans are mammals. So in conclusion, all humans must have backbones. So we take this more general data and use it to come to a specific conclusion. With inductive reasoning, an example for this might be, all dogs that I've met are very friendly, therefore, all dogs are friendly. Another example of inductive reasoning would be, every 500 years, the West Coast has had a major earthquake. It's been 499 years since the last earthquake, conclusion being that we're going to have an earthquake soon. And it's this inductive reasoning that I really want to focus on. Now, I know you may be wondering, Missy, what the hell does this have to do with manifestation? It has everything to do with manifestation, so bear with me. So deductive reasoning is more the scientific method. This is what most scientists use when they're forming a hypothesis to get to a theory or conclusion. Inductive reasoning, on the other hand, is the form of reason that the vast majority of us use in our everyday lives. And though this reasoning can seem very concrete and logical, there's actually a lot of holes in it that are important to note. Because the problem with inductive reasoning is that it can lead us from examples that we feel are true based on experience and lead us to false conclusions. Simply put, inductive reasoning takes observation from past experience and extrapolates that to determine what's going to happen in the future for us. This means that we assume certain things will be based on what was, and this keeps us perpetuating a pattern. This is why we get stuck in patterns the way that we do. And despite this flaw, most of us are using inductive reasoning in our everyday lives without even realizing it. And it's this reasoning that it makes it so challenging for us to build the faith or for us to completely suspend disbelief. And all of us are doing this almost all the time without even realizing it. Well, I've never had a loving relationship before. Guys always use me. Girls are never serious about dating. So therefore, I must be unlovable. This person has always been a liar. Therefore, they're always going to be a liar. Because I've never known anything except poverty and being broke, then I must be destined to just be broke. How could I possibly think that things can turn out in my favor when I've known nothing but bad luck and misfortune? Because we are so conditioned to reason this way, to think in these terms, to predict certain outcomes, that we get so stuck on the how and the when and how is this possibly going to happen. It keeps us stuck in a perpetual feedback loop. But these teachings, first and foremost, teach us that any assumption can be changed and that an assumption is not a fact. Even if it has always been a certain way, does not mean it is going to continue to be that way indefinitely. It is this logic and type of reasoning that keeps us in bondage. This keeps us from being able to suspend any disbelief in going all in on what could be and assuming that form, assuming the nature of what we actually desire. And we do this in so many areas of our life, and we do it so unconsciously that a lot of times we don't even realize that we're doing it. And we can see from our own beliefs and what we've deemed as reasonable or logical, if we truly take a look at what we deem as rational, a lot of the times it's really just bias and belief. The problem with this type of reasoning is that it creates a premise that we cling to. These are our foundational or core beliefs. And we treat them as if they're law, as if they're fact, as if because it's always been this way, it is always going to be this way. and will not let us entertain anything otherwise. And that is why we have to be able to understand the fallacy in this. We have to see, even from a more analytical and logical perspective, that we do not need to continue on this premise. This undesirable and unwanted pattern does not need to continue to be so. And hence the importance of changing these core beliefs that we hold. It is in the name itself, the law of assumption. And that is, we have the power and ability to choose, to assume boldly something new and something different. And in fact, that is what we must do if we want to see lasting change, because to continue to assume the same things we've always done and believe in the same things that we've always believed in and expecting a change is the textbook definition of insanity. My aim for this video is to truly bring awareness to something that we not even be conscious of doing, but we are doing every single day. We are forming these judgments, we are forming these facts of life, a lot of the time based on past experience and what we've deemed as true for us. And ergo, it must continue to be that way going forward. But this is never, ever the case. And that is because all of creation is already finished. Everything that could possibly exist, any kind of possible scenario you can fathom, anything that you can imagine can be experienced. Even if it's something wildly different than what you have currently experienced in the past. Reason will try to get you to dismiss and denounce anything that you do not believe is true for you, based on your experiences, your memories, and what you already assume and believe how the world works. Reason will try to tell you that you're being delusional, that you're being irrational. But I'm here to say that it is actually illogical to think that just because something happened a certain way a certain number of times, or it's been a pattern before, does not mean that it inherently has to continue to be so. And that is the power of our imagination. It is through imagination, it is through this vessel, our power, our source, that we can experience anything that we desire. Reason will try to tell you that what you imagine is fiction. And this is a premise that we have to reject. We imagine all the time. We imagine scenarios and circumstances that have yet to come to fruition, some of them which we deem to be true, and others that we deem to be false, even though it's all imagination. So if we can imagine something and feel that to be true, then we have to accept that what we imagine is true for us. Reason will try to tell you that you can't have this thing. Reason's going to try to tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not qualified enough, that you're not pretty enough, and on and on and on and on. We can choose in each moment, in every moment, whether or not to accept that premise. Because again, just because it is based on something we've experienced in the past does not mean that it is inherently going to happen in the future, or that it's inherently true. This is what Neville meant by deny your reason, deny the evidence of your senses, because that is all out picturing of old stuff anyways. None of that is relevant in all the possibilities that are in existence. Creation being finished means that in every single moment, you have a brand new slate. You have a blank slate in order to create anything that you want. And that is the premise that we have to begin to accept going forward. We must accept that in every moment, we have an opportunity to imagine, to contemplate, and to assume something entirely new. That is your God-given right and your God-given power. So leave the facts alone, because under scrutiny, what we see as facts are usually flawed anyways. And even if they are true, even if the old premise is true, has no bearing on what is possible for you to experience going forward. And once we do this, once we understand that we are first cause, that awareness of being, that our self is the first cause, and that everything is an expression from you, from imagination, from the source of all that is, once you understand and trust that every moment is unique, and a brand new start if you decide it to be so. Once you understand reasoning and our ways that we reason and draw conclusions are flawed at best and downright dishonest at worst. Once you know this, once you understand this, that is how you remove the chains and bondage of reason and move freely into whatever you desire to experience instead. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope this helped to clear up a few things. I hope this brought awareness and understanding to our rational mind. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you are interested in checking out any of my other resources, I'll have links down below to my coaching programs, my workshops and masterclasses, my blog, my podcast, my social links. Got a ton of resources down in the description box below, so don't forget to check those out. Also, be sure to check out the other videos on this channel. Be sure to check out my Manifestation Fundamentals playlist. Each video is a different topic, but it all pertains in how to manifest the best life ever. So until we meet again, you guys, as always, please take care, be well, and never forget to leave the facts alone, because you are first cause, now and always. Happy manifesting, guys.